I'm Austin Wintry. I'm a composer, and I've been very lucky to work on some interesting and really fun and challenging games. Like Flow, that game company's first game, and Monaco. Journey was insane, and it's hard to imagine not looking back 50 years from now and saying, yep, that was the highlight of my whole life. The Banner Saga was interesting because they did a Kickstarter campaign which I hadn't navigated before. You're wanting to make something in a way for the people that have backed it, but the flip is also true. The whole point of it is they're backing you to go do your thing. We had a legitimate budget with which to do it, but none of the infrastructure that comes with that in a traditional publisher. And so it was kind of like just being turned loose into the wild. The music shoulders a lot of the narrative burden, so to speak, because it's one of the only things you hear. It needs to be able to say a lot, and if it's falling short of that, then I'm basically ruining their game for them. The Stoic guys, everything I wrote, they were kind of like, oh, that seems to be really nice, and I was far more of a critic on myself, and I'm like, it's really not though, I think it sucks. But let's just put it in the game, and it'll help me kind of triangulate. The two main gameplay sort of modes are the travel and everything associated with that, and then the actual combat, which is the turn-based strategy part. From an aesthetic standpoint, they should all feel like one score, but under the hood, they are pretty different. And so because they released factions as a way to playtest their combat mechanics, I spent a lot of time on that first, and then I played online with players. A ton, I mean like 130 hours or something. And I was actually playing music against our match to test out like, okay, now that feels too fast. It feels like I'm rushing the gameplay, and the gameplay's supposed to be like chess where you're sitting and thinking, and big bombastic statements don't work, but you don't want to just chill, you know. I didn't want to make this like a meditative experience. It needed to be tense. And it also has, on top of that, this emotional idea of these are warriors weary about fighting. They feel tired, and they wanna relax, and they want to feel peace, and they're being dogged by this relentless struggle that they didn't ask for. And so I thought the music needs to have that, and that's not a big action-y kind of sound either. The color palette of the score, in terms of the instruments chosen, is something I always try to be really organic about. I try to let the game or the film or whatever tell me what it wants, and just be as open to whatever the possibilities might be as possible in case it ends up being a really weird mixture of genres. I wasn't quite sure what it wanted, but I needed to start writing, and so I did like the idea of it having a brassy sound, and specifically like a regal quality that comes through in specifically a French horn solo that I really like, but it can be both full of pride and honor and yet kind of sad and mournful, and that was what this game was. This is warriors who are alone and facing the end of the world with nothing they can do about it. And then at some point, I started to notice that I wasn't really using strings. And I thought, what if I just eliminate the strings completely and I actually score this thing for winds and brass and percussion, like a wind ensemble? And as backstory to that, like 10 years ago, I was living in Manhattan, and I went to Carnegie Hall to the premiere of a piece called Circus Maximus, and it was a big group, like 20 trumpets and 12 French horns and percussion, and they're all through the hall. And so as I started to notice that I was kind of writing wind ensemble music of a similar instrumentation as that piece, and so I thought, well, how am I going to record this? And so I just called the conductor who had been the conductor who commissioned that piece. He's like a legend And I thought, he's not even gonna return my call, but I'll just try. And he called me right back and was like, this sounds super interesting. But he also conducts basically the foremost professional wind ensemble in the world, the Dallas Winds. So he said, what do you think of us doing this in Dallas? And I thought, like, holy crap, that's so much better than I was even initially thinking. And then the other thing that started to emerge was, I knew I needed some intimate something. There's a father-daughter story that is very personal in this game and very intimate, and I was like, I need that to feel somehow separate. And around that time, Taylor Davis put a video on YouTube of a cover of Journey. That was one of the most astounding things I ever saw in my life. The love that she showed Journey was the most touching thing I could have imagined. So I just basically called her and said, I'm hiring you, I need a violin, I want one string on this score. I'm gonna have like 9 French horns and 5 trombones and 20 winds and 7 percussion, all this big wind ensemble, and 1 violin, and that's you. And then while we were doing the Kickstarter campaign, was shortly after Maluka had put her Skyrim, her Dragonborn Skyrim cover had gone on YouTube right shortly, like a couple months before their Kickstarter for the Banner Saga. So in the comment thread, people were like, do you guys know about Maluka? And I didn't know about her at the time. Like, that's how I heard about her. And I went and, of course, listened and was like, oh my God, this girl's voice is astonishing.
For the darkness has passed and the legend yet grows. You'll know the Dragonborn's come.
I said, you're gonna be a part of the Banner Saga. I said, I don't have any idea what that'll mean. I have no clue how vocals will figure into this score at all. But I said, put it in your pocket that I'm gonna be calling about that. Around that same time, I met Peter Hollins, who also is a YouTube phenomenon. He's an extraordinary musician. And so I called him and I said the same thing. And I really liked the idea of reaching out to people on the internet. There's something very kind of spiritually and philosophically connected about reaching out to people in the online community to participate in the score in tandem to the fact that the online community is who financed the thing to begin with. One of the cool Kickstarter things they did is if you give above a certain amount of money, we'll make a so-called Godstone of your visage and you can help write the lore, because the whole premise of the game is that the gods are dead. The backers were writing their lore for their gods that are laid in tribute, almost like in these giant gravestones. So I thought, what if there's folk songs associated with those godstones where every time you get by, the caravan spontaneously bursts into song singing about that god. And then I basically just started writing poetry inspired by the lore, and it's always very simple. It's like 1- and 2-line poems. And then I also researched a lot of Viking and Norse mythology and proverbs specifically from which to draw the lyrics as well. And so, because they had people in Norway who were translating and recording VO in Icelandic, I basically just hitched a ride onto that and sent all my lyrics in English to the people in Norway and said, can you do this in Icelandic for me? You know, write it in Icelandic and then record yourself speaking it very slowly and carefully so that I can hear how it breaks down syllabically and then set it to music. I didn't really realize how insane that language is. It is so unlike English. They have so many sounds that we do not use. Their mouth and their tongue move in ways that English does not. And so I have this wonderful voicemail from Peter where he was like, "We used to be friends, but you're clearly trying to kill me because I couldn't have invented something harder to sing than this." It was brutal. And then as for the final song, Onward, Maluka actually wrote those lyrics. And I told her what I thought they should be about, and then she did a pass and sent it to me, and then we revised them together and fine-tuned it, and then I sent it to Norway, and they translated it to Icelandic and sent it back, and she learned it in Icelandic. Yeah, it's designed as a trilogy. We've already had conversations about how the music would evolve aesthetically over the course of the three, and how, you know, there's little breadcrumbs in the score of like a theme that is not really developed because it's based on something that the player doesn't really know what's that significance of that was. I'm not going anywhere. And same with the orchestra in Dallas, and Taylor and Peter and Maluka and Johan, who I failed to mention before, who's another singer who's in Norway who natively speaks Icelandic. I've told all of them, all the musicians, the orchestra, I'll be back. I got 2 more times I need you. So yeah, very excited.